So I'll speak in favor of masterly inactivity. So the basic tenet of clinical medicine is first do no harm. So no medicine is best medicine and least medicine is best alternative, unless we have sufficient merit to the contrary. Now to prove this, the onus is on us. About masterly inactivity does not mean that doing nothing. Read diligent follow-up. Now the fear of missing treatable disease is ingrained in us, and to counteract this attitude, we have to have an equally ingrained fear of perpetuating illness behavior, if occurs, we would order unnecessary tests and carry out poorly indicated medical procedures, read interventions. So in pre-perimetric glaucoma, basically it is a gray zone. It's not consistently defined in pre and post-OCT era, and each research article has slightly different perception. Current perimetric definitions to find out defects rely on Anderson's criteria. They neither tell you whether it's 24-2 only or 24-2 and 10-2, as my esteemed colleague has not mentioned in the previous slide. And there are limitations to the structural assessment in the clinical as well as imaging methodologies. We do have to have more clarity about what true pre-perimetric disease actually is. Now, what guidelines say about glaucoma management in general? All the EGS, CGIC, WGC, if we refer to them, then the very important fact that they mention is preservation of visual function adequate to the needs. And they say that if there is a low risk of visual field loss, you should not treat. Now, the treatment affecting quality of life is very important and of practical value. So the keywords are visual function and quality of life, not RNFL or not the disc photograph. So treating of which of this will affect quality of life? A CD 0.8, a RNFL which is 75 microns, or a field which looks like this. So vision related quality of life is not impaired in patients with pre-perimetric glaucoma is a study which has been published and we all know it. Now, what are the diagnostic limitations in pre-perimetric glaucoma? Now, when we use OCT, there are differences in machines in terms of reproducibility, accuracy, and that is an important consideration. A wide range of machines are used for study. Above factors have to be considered, and normative databases are not all encompassing and can give you substantially erratic results in some cases. The big question is repeatability. Autocentration and ability to detect progression in green is limited to very, very few instruments which may not be available to everybody. And this is a very important fact to be considered in pre-perimetric glaucoma. As far as therapeutic audits are concerned, if we go to our sticky wicket, that is the number needed to treat and number needed to harm, we definitely know from the experience of various clinical trials that the NNTs of conditions in which already there has been existing glaucoma has also not been quite satisfactory. It's been around 5.88, 16.7, 15 for the OATS study, which can be considered nearest to the example that Premanand gave us. So it's 15. So NNT of 15 for a case of OATS is something that we need to ponder about when we think about starting to treat pre-perimetric glaucoma, which according to me can be quite overzealous. So drugs do affect quality of life. There's something called as number needed to harm. So we do not have similar data for pre-perimetric disease. So we have to be cautious before treating each and every case of pre-perimetric glaucoma. When you see expert opinions, when the disease status is uncertain and the risk is uncertain, CGIC says reassess both and not treat. Pre-perimetric glaucoma, if you ask Dr. Anders Hale, he says that it's a difficult diagnosis and can be erroneous. The goal of treatment is to prevent loss of quality of life, and most patients with pre-perimetric disease never suffer any QOL, which is actually the aim of glaucoma therapy. And receiving a diagnosis of glaucoma itself reduces a patient's QOL. So all these things need to be pondered about. So if you see this patient is an 80-year-old male, systemically nil, and he has other normal parameters. If you see the OCT has gone down from 94 to 79 with field defects, absolutely not there. Would you treat? Now, if with the above background, your answer is no, I have conveyed my point. So the conclusion is treating every case of pre-perimetric disease is not practical and not evidence-based. Due diligence and follow-up is mandatory though. Discuss with the patient and treat only if associated with high-risk factors that would cause functional loss in the lifetime.